Your grandpa owned a World War II Jeep. He bought it directly from Uncle Sam in 1946 for 50 bucks. He put it together, he drove it home, and with the change from that 50 bucks, he also bought your grandma a steak dinner and made your dad. However, like many of Grampy's stories, it just ain't true. He didn't buy a crated Jeep for 50 bucks from Uncle Sam. However, what he wished he had bought was something like this. And so today I'm going to take you through the incredible story or myth of the crated World War II Jeep, what Grampy wished he could have bought and what he really did buy and what you could buy today. So what is the myth of the crated World War II Jeep? Why is it so pervasive, and why was it even pervasive back then in 1946, 1947 when they were selling these things off? Well, we all know that at the end of World War II, Americans were left with tons, tens of thousands of vehicles, tanks, material, bases, plants for producing steel, as anything you could think of. We weren't going to use it for invading Japan anymore. The bomb had sorted that out, but we still had this material. We didn't have anything effectively to do with it. The Jeeps which were in Europe weren't cost effective to bring back. They were left over there. They were sold to our partners, or the Americans' partners, should I say, and they were used post-war for rebuilding and protecting the fledgling Europe. Stuff in Japan, a lot of it wasn't brought back either. Bulldozed, pushed into the sea, not cost effective to bring back. A lot of it ended up in things like the Philippines, where the jeepney comes from, in Japan. They became part of the mythos of the post-World War II world. However, many Jeeps didn't make it over to Europe or Japan. They stayed in America. There had to be something to do with these vehicles, so what was Uncle Sam going to do with them? Well, the first obvious answer then is these were still useful vehicles. All the good ones, all the practically brand new ones, you could still use them. It was 1946, 1947. The vehicles were still effectively modern. Yes, some of them needed improvements, and they did get improved after the war, but they could be used for all sorts of stuff like park rangers, fire, police, anything you can think of. So the really good stuff went to these people first. It went to the government first. Of course, they kept the good stuff, and slowly it filtered its way down the layers. The War Assets Administration was set up to dispose of war assets effectively, and what there was many people would have liked a World War II Jeep. Many people would have liked all the material from World War II, of course, the mythos surrounding it. If you'd used one in World War II as well, wouldn't it be fun to have one for, say, 50 bucks or something like that? So what you could do if you were a veteran is you could apply to the War Assets Administration. You prove that you were a veteran, they would take you on board, they would send you out a catalogue. In it would be listed all the assets which were for sale. You could go down them. Every single Jeep was listed individually. It wasn't one Jeep in a crate, X Jeep in a crate, 50 lots of Jeeps in a crate. It was individual serial numbers, and all these vehicles were from motor pools effectively, and they were all varying conditions as well. What you would do is you would circle the ones you wanted, you would send it back to them, you would put your notice of interest in, and it would be a fixed priced auction for that exact vehicle. The time would come, you would turn up to the auction lot, thousands of vehicles there, you would be driven out to where your vehicle was, it would be there, sitting, waiting for you, on its wheels, ready to go. You would inspect it, see if the condition and the price that Uncle Sam gave you matched with the reality of what you found, and then if you liked it, you would go back to the hut, you would pay your money, and you would drive away with your Jeep. However, it didn't work exactly like that. Now here comes the rub. I've never dealt with Uncle Sam, however, I think many of you have. Many of you have been in the forces as well. And let's say Uncle Sam and bureaucracy, he doesn't play particularly fair sometimes. The prices of these Jeeps varied from about $200 to $700, which in today's money, it can go from about 5 grand to 10 grand effectively. So these weren't cheap vehicles. Now the other thing with them was that Uncle Sam wasn't sending his best. He kept all the good stuff. These were motor pool vehicles. These were vehicles not in crates. They were vehicles ready to be driven away. He couldn't have you turn up at the auction house with a load of spanners and put together a whole load of Jeeps and drive them off. That just wasn't realistic. What it was is he was getting rid of the stuff he didn't need anymore. And so what many of these veterans found is they went out to their vehicle, they went to inspect it, and they found that Uncle Sam had done the old switcheroo on them. Unfortunately, these vehicles were not tip-top condition. They had been left outside for a couple of weeks. There's reports of tyres perished, things stolen or missing off them, cracked and damaged parts. These were not good vehicles. And what happened was that many veterans turned up to look at their vehicles and decided they just weren't going to take it. So we end up with stories like this one where the first auction for these vehicles was oversubscribed. Too many veterans wanted a Jeep. They had that idea of that promised Jeep in a crate. They would turn up, pay 50 bucks, and they would get their beautiful brand new Jeep in the crate. What they really found was that they got an old piece of crap. And when the second auction came along, there just weren't enough people to come along to it. They just weren't interested. They'd seen they'd been duped and they weren't going to take it. So we can see even back then, the myth of the crated Jeep was very strong, so much so that it drew all these veterans in to try and hoover up one of these bargain Jeeps, but it didn't really occur. Now, looking around, there is one story which I'm not entirely sure whether it's true or not. It does mention that a load of Jeeps fell off, they were sunk in Japan or out in the Far East, brought back on a landing ship tank, and then they were going to be sold off. It doesn't seem like a realistic newspaper article. It seems more like the hook to try and lure people in. The idea of a crated Jeep, the idea of Uncle Sam pulling 60 Jeeps off the seabed out in the Far East, bringing them all the way back to California where they're effectively scrap, and then selling them on. I don't think it's true. It could be. It does say that these were reconditioned. Some of them were. It seems funny when we know that he literally bulldozed whole islands and surplus into the sea. You know, why would he bring back 60 Jeeps? Now, this isn't to say there weren't crated Jeeps and they weren't available. Some people could get hold of them. They did end up out there. We know some dealers ended up with crated Jeeps. We know some stuff would have been left over. Out in Europe, there would have been, the Jeeps are all shipped out in crates, so you could probably have got one out there. But to find one back in the US just wasn't likely. It wasn't going to happen. There are a couple of them, but the likelihood of your grandpa actually buying a Jeep in a crate for 50 bucks is practically zero. So that's great. We know Uncle Sam wasn't going to sell you a great Jeep. You could get a Jeep and you would end up with a Jeep, but you wouldn't get exactly what you were looking for. So this begs the question, why am I standing in front of this weird, yellow, old, tatty old Jeep? And the answer is, this is the Jeep that your grandpa wished he could have bought for 50 bucks, and you can buy today. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a walk around on this Jeep like it's on the lot, like it's 1946, like we gone to the auction, and we're gonna have a look at this Jeep, look at the details on it, and I'm gonna show you exactly what makes up a World War II Jeep and what makes this one extremely special and rare back then and even now. Well, here she is, one of our 700 buck Jeeps on the lot. Looking at it overall, fantastic, classic World War II Jeep. Look there with the good stance. It's got its hood on, all the glass, looking fantastic with the flat fender on the front. Absolutely love it. Usually we got hoods, they're damaged, they're sat on, they need some work. You're gonna have to pay to get that straightened. Fenders usually smashed in as well. They've been used on farm, had a hard life. Not seeing that here. One of the things for the collectors, original World War II glass there, look at that. Safety plate, real glass. So all the sort of cool things that we like to find if we're finding an original Jeep. Other things again we're looking at, really straight, nice straight here. We've had bits welded on and what have you. Obviously Bubba has had it, he's had a different top on it at some point. We've got really cool things like these chains. These are lost. This is how we know it was a Jeep which wasn't from a motor pool, or it was a Jeep which didn't really see service, because it has all the cool things like these little chains still on it. This one can be used as is, or it could be restored and have a fantastic basis for a super original restoration. I mean, again, for our geek guys, we've got real World War II sea lights on there. You know, you don't see those. Obviously, they get changed and replaced after World War II, but these are real sea lights. I mean, that's really neat. It's got its blackout light there, changed to some sort of GE spotlights, but the whole housing and everything like that is still there. And we've got all these awesome things, like we've got these star washers underneath these. This means it's never come off. These are the grounding washers to provide grounding. A 6-volt Jeep, the chassis, like many vehicles, or the frame, should I say, is what the negative wire for the battery is. So the positive goes in through a wire, the negative returns to the battery through the whole frame of the Jeep. And to get a good electrical contact, you have these little washers everywhere. Now, when people play with Jeeps after the war, they don't know what these washers are for, they don't need them. So if they ever take anything off, they just throw these things away. So to have all these star washers, we call them, is fantastic. And look at this, for the real geeks, these are EA marked bolts, not EC. So we expect to find on a Jeep, a World War II Jeep, CTR bolts, things like that. We know all the types of bolts they use, but we can see they also had things like EA bolts as well. And not everybody knows that. Another one I just spotted here doesn't have them fitted, but it's got the hole here. This is for the vacuum wipers. So off the manifold there, through that little grommet would come the rubber hose for the vacuum from the manifold. It would go up there, all the way up, and you can see this had late war Trico vacuum wipers fitted at one point. We got where our Pioneer tools would be on the side here. They've gone. Obviously, you know, Uncle Sam's not going to give you free Pioneer tools, so they're all removed off there. But this area usually rusts out. Underneath there is a lip and all the rust, all the mud gets stuck in this lip under here, and I'm pulling it. Yeah, it's rusted through, right? But this isn't push your... This is not, ow, this is not push your finger through rust. Inside, yeah, classic World War II Jeep, really. It's all there. Yeah, some of the bits messed with. We've got some different knobs and what have you. Gauges, out. Pretty good. And then over here, really important, got our data plates, really nice late war data plates, complete. All solid floors, usually again, rusted through. You're gonna have to replace all this. You can't just go and drive it off. This is all gonna need replacement, but this is all good, solid metal, and it's not all smashed to pieces. Tool boxes, the locker lids, they're usually sat on or destroyed and what have you. They're only flat, little flat bits of metal, and they get destroyed, but it's all there and it's all straight. Rear panel, straight again, not all destroyed. This is a late war Jeep. This is a late war World War II Jeep. Now, what they found in the continent was that the exhaust pipe is usually on the side down here, and it comes out the side here. However, all the mud from the front tyres goes up and gets stuck under there, and it becomes like a mud shelf, and it also grounds you out as well, as it rips the exhaust off. So they learnt that, and towards the end of the war they moved the exhaust to the late war exhaust. So this has a late war called a deep mud exhaust, and that is up underneath there. I don't know if you can see it well, but it's underneath there. So this has got the cool late war mud exhaust, which is really sweet. This thing, as far as I'm aware, was worked on in 2014, had some engine work done to it, was got going, and then that was it. It didn't run much after 2014. So I've gone around it and I've done the bare minimum to get this thing working and driving, so that whoever moves onto it, whoever buys it, they can have the fun of taking it apart if they want to, or not taking it apart. They can go around, they can find all the little details, all the cool things that we look for on a World War II Jeep. It's a fantastic little project, this one. Should we take it for a quick spin then and see what it's like? Well, to start off with, draws away very nicely, changes gear, all the good stuff. There's third. Hands off. It's trying to go to the left a bit, but it does it on these roads. Very nice indeed, I'll be honest. You know, it's changing through the gears all right. It brakes in a straight line. You know, very nice indeed, really. Pulls away nicely. Pretty good. Pretty much as nice as many restored vehicles, I'll be honest. And as I said, this is the sort of thing which you can go through, check the brakes, check everything, make sure it's happy, and you can either run it as it is, or you can do a full restoration on it. So really, it's a sort of perfect vehicle, and very rare to find these days. We're just not finding vehicles like this for restoration anymore. And so then, what do we reckon to Grampy's Jeep then, or the Jeep that Grampy wished he could have got for 50 bucks in a crate? Well, it's amazing in this day and age that we can get better than what they hoped for. All those GIs, all those veterans who were queuing up to get hold of Jeeps and found that Uncle Sam had done the dirty on them and was actually just selling them his leftover dregs. It's not a great story, is it? It's a shame, but these days we can find what they were looking for. And of course, it's not 50 bucks. It's not 10,000 bucks these days. You've got to pay for it, but if you can get hold of a working vehicle, an unrestored, original vehicle like this, all ready to go, and you can make it more safe, clean out the fuel tank, do the brakes, do the electrics, work out all the history of it, enjoy it, drive it. I mean, that's worth a hell of a lot. That's worth a hell of a lot these days. And we see so many restored Jeeps and we see so many unrestored Jeeps. Restored Jeeps full of Chinese parts, all reproduction parts, not original, not with all the original history, all the bolts that were put together in the factory by the Rosie Riveters and everybody else. So to get hold of that and get the history is well worth it, I think, and they're few and far between. I've worked on original Jeeps before, and I've worked on some unrestored ones, and they usually need a lot of work. The fact that the guy had already done the engine work on this and some of the other work, transmission, you could leave it or you could do it, make it a little bit quieter, sort it out, it runs absolutely fine, do the electrics, make everything work, uncover the history. That's part of the enjoyment of these things.
And that's why I haven't done a full restoration or anything like that on this one, because it's just too good to mess with like this. It's enjoyable to look, you know, it's a peppy little thing, and it's just crawling along as well. It's a well-behaved vehicle. I really like it. So if you want it, contact me at greendotjeep@gmail.com. That's greendotjeep@gmail.com. Get in touch, we can sort something out. Or if you want carburetor work, it's combatoriginals.com. I restore World War II 539S carburetors. But until then, that is me signing off. Enjoy jeeping.